Hello everyone, welcome to our podcast episode on teaching the four skills in language learning. I am Luiz Fernando and I'm here with my colleagues Samara and Wilma. In this episode, we will also be discussing the significance of developing all four language skills, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, according to two articles. One called Teaching the Four Skills in the Primary EFL Classroom by Cabrera and Basil, and the other one called The Importance of Four Skills: Reading, Speaking, Writing, Listening in a Lesson Hour by Lorena Menezes. Also, I think it's important to mention that each of us will cover two topics of this podcast, which are divided as the following parts: introduction, teaching, listening, speaking, reading, and writing skill, and finally the conclusion. According to the article titled The Importance of Four Skills: Reading, Speaking, Writing, Listening in a Lesson Hour, published in the European Journal of Language and Literature Studies, these four skills are the foundation of language learning and are essential for students to become proficient in a language. As the other article by Cabrera and Basil suggests, the teaching of English as a foreign language is now one of the most important subjects in most European primary schools. So considering this, we can see that developing reading skills helps students to understand written text and acquire new vocabulary. Writing skills enable students to express their thoughts and ideas in writing and improving their grammar. Speaking skills help students to communicate effectively with others and develop their pronunciation. Listening skills are essential for understanding spoken language and are the foundation for speaking. With all this, in this episode, we will also be discussing how these skills are four capabilities that allow an individual to comprehend, produce, and use the language in effective interpersonal communication. They are most often acquired in the order of listening first, then speaking, then possibly reading and writing. Listening and reading are called receptive skills because learners do not need to produce language to do this. They receive and understand it. Speaking and writing are called productive skills because learners doing this need to produce language. Having a good English level means understanding and producing the language, so we should teach and develop all the four language skills in our students. So let's dive into this topic and explore how we can enhance our students' language learning experience by incorporating these techniques into our lessons. First, let's talk about the listening skill, which is one of the most difficult skills for language learners according to the article titled Teaching the Four Skills in the Primary EFL Classroom. Also, the article Teaching the Four Skills in the Primary EFL Classroom by Cabrera and Basil shows that there are various techniques for teaching listening skills, such as using authentic materials, pre-listening activities, while listening, and post-listening activities. So here, I'm going to summarize each step according to the task. Step 1. Preparing for listening tasks. Before we play the audio, it's crucial to help students prepare. We have to ensure they understand the required language and know what's expected of them. Also, we have to let them know they don't need to grasp every word. And by grasp here, I mean they don't need to pause every word. Step 2. Encourage anticipation. Encourage students to anticipate what they will hear. For this, we have to use contextual cues and the topic of the lesson to help them predict answers, ask questions, and use illustrations to boost their guessing skills. Step 3. Focus during listening. During the audio, we have to ensure students concentrate solely on understanding the message. Avoid multitasking like reading, drawing, or writing. Offer a second chance to listen for those who struggle. Step 4. Collecting answers. After the activity, try to invite answers from the entire class. Avoid putting individuals under pressure. Rather than confirming correctness, we play the audio for confirmation. List multiple answers on the board and let the class choose the correct one if needed. Step 5. Self-checking. Even if students seem successful, encourage them to listen again and check their answers independently. So, to teach listening skills effectively, as we learned, it's essential to follow these steps for the teaching process be more accurate. Then, we have to keep in mind that using authentic materials such as podcasts and videos that reflect real-life situations is extremely important. Considering all of this, before we switch from this topic to the next one, I would like to say that as a language teacher, I have incorporated these techniques into my lessons and I have seen significant improvements in my students' listening skills because by using these techniques, students can develop their listening skills and become more confident in their ability to communicate in a foreign language.
Now we'll talk about speaking. In the text that we use, the authors Lorena Manage, Marcos Cabrera, and Plácido Baz highlight the importance of work on the full languages skill. Manage states that language skills are a chain, a circle, and not individual areas. We know that's not always possible to work on all four skills in a single lesson. However, it's important to work on two or more skills together whenever possible. Cabrera and Baz provide some tips on how to work on the speaking skill. They suggest that speaking activities should be fun and engaging. This can help through songs, poems, and other activities at the basic levels. Another alternative brought by the authors are games and pair activities. They emphasize the importance of making it clear to children the reason for asking a question or provide information. In my own experience, I think songs help a lot, and in the case of speaking, songs can help us with pronunciation. About the reading skill, both texts talk how work on this skill can be tedious for the student. Manage states that the loss of the habit of reading is a shame. She explains that reading is a productive way to improve our vocabulary and the power of words. A rich vocabulary helps you listen better, write better, and speak better. In other words, reading is important for develop of the other skills. Cabrera and Basil also provide some tips on how to make reading more interesting for students. When choosing texts, consider not only the level of difficulty, but also how they can arouse interest or humor so that children want to read for fun or to discover something they still don't know. By using illustrations, discuss the subject, and asking questions to stimulate language and stimulate the interest of students. Another tip that I think is important to talk about here is to ask students to read aloud. As many times students focus on what they are saying than what they are reading, and the meaning is often lost.
Let's talk now about writing skills. For authors Lorena Menage, Marcos Cabrera, and Plácido Bazo, Writing skills in schools are an important process for students to learn a foreign language, in this case, the English language. This process must begin with isolated words and phrases that involve familiar terms such as family, robs, your home, food, etc., because they are not yet capable for producing larger tests. As the content is assimilated, the teacher can begin to explore new means. According to Lorena, writing is a gentle pick because writing opens doors to effective writing where the student will start by writing loose sentences and the teacher will start creating tests from scratch as it will take a while for a student to feel comfortable writing. Cabrera and Basso report the teacher must have the sensitivity to write for the moment. He must be attentive and look for ways to correct his tests. Seeing how to approach mistakes made by students and making the student feel comfortable is wanting to write and not begin approach in a way that embarrasses them. Because if the approach is wrong, it will cause dismotivation for some. The teacher should recognize the effort and process of the student for phrasing his test and whenever possible exposing them in the classroom or even outside for it as writing takes time to improve. The purpose of this work is to present is the podcast that the teacher of English language employer the for skill for learning is an important educational tool because with the use of its applications help the teacher and learning process bring improvements and an evolution in the performance of the class. We know that success is not always achieved because there is still much to evolve because tools are played and used are not yet considered sufficient. Applying the four skills and making use of them frequently, teaching what is said to be necessary is to leave the teacher free to use varieties of materials, methodologies, and strategies so that the students understand this content addressed and the teacher achieves his goals with is that the student has easy listening, speaking, reading, and writing the foreign language that for many is considered difficult. Luiz, Samara, and I would you like to thank all the teachers who listen to us. We know that teaching to English language is difficult, but when it's done with content, everything works out. Thank you everyone and see you soon.